Welcome to Cheating Story Lab. Here, each deceit has a concealed reason revealed beneath. Share your location, and I will reciprocate with a like. Have you ever encountered a neighbor who appeared troublesome, only to uncover hidden complexities? Neighbors, at times, can guard the most intriguing secrets. Share your experiences in the comments below. Label me as someone who realized that property borders conceal familial bonds. It's the stories that carry weight. I never imagined my tranquil suburban existence would spiral into a legal ordeal due to an 8-foot chain-link fence dispute. Yet, even minor disagreements can expose profound truths, and what began as a trivial property disagreement escalated into something that would rattle both families to their very core. My identity is irrelevant. My narrative holds significance. I've resided in my house on Maple Street for 7 years with my wife Brielle and our 2 children. We had amiable neighbors, a satisfactory lawn, and the standard chain-link fence that segregated our property from the one next door. The fence was already there when we purchased the place, serving as a clear demarcation of where our yard ended and our neighbors began. Our neighbor was a man named Kieran, approximately 65, who had been residing in his house for over 3 decades. He was generally solitary, although he often appeared somewhat intense. He had this habit of observing from his kitchen window, and Brielle frequently felt as though he was monitoring our family. However, he had never instigated any significant issues, so we simply continued with our lives. That all changed one Tuesday morning in March. I was sipping coffee on my back porch when Kieran marched across his yard, his face flushed with an anger I'd never witnessed before. He didn't even bother with pleasantry. "That fence," he declared, pointing at the chain-link barrier between our properties. "That structure has been on your land for 30 years, and you want it removed." I put down my coffee, taken aback. "You mean on your land?" "The boundary has always been there since we bought the house. Prior to us buying the property," Kieran retorted tersely. "I had a survey of my property done years ago. That structure is 18 inches over the property line. I've been patient long enough. 18 inches. It was a struggle for me to grasp this." "Kieran, if that were accurate, why didn't you mention it earlier? We've been neighbors all this time." His jaw clenched. "I'm bringing it up now. Move the structure or I'll contact my lawyer." The discussion concluded there, but something in his tone unsettled me. This wasn't just about property boundaries. There was a sense of panic in his voice, an immediacy that didn't fit the circumstances. Why now? Why, after 30 years of the structure remaining exactly where it was, did he suddenly require those 18 inches back? Brielle heard the commotion when I entered. Her body language showed she had listened to the entire conversation from the window. Kieran appeared distressed, not merely agitated, but fearful, a notion that proved accurate in the following days. His behavior grew increasingly odd, spending hours standing in his backyard fixed on the fence line. He began taking photographs, measuring distances, and jotting down notes in a small notebook. This conduct was disconcerting when our children played outside, and Kieran would watch from his window with an unnerving intensity that made Brielle uneasy. One evening as we watched, she expressed her discomfort. "I don't like this," she said. "Something isn't right here." Concerned, I decided to delve into the matter further. I navigated online property records, scrutinizing both our deeds and Kieran's. Based on official records, our boundary line aligns with where I assumed it was, following the fence line. However, property records aren't always accurate, and Kieran appeared confident about his assertion. The following week, a formal letter from Kieran's lawyer arrived at my house, requiring us to shift the fence within 30 days or risk legal consequences. The letter contained a replica of an apparent property survey from 1994, indicating that 18 inches of our yard, including the fence, lay on Kieran's property. This survey troubled me, as it seemed suspicious, though I couldn't pinpoint why. The figures appeared accurate, but there was something about the document itself that looked questionable. My wife and I deliberated over our possible courses of action that evening. We could engage a surveyor to confirm the boundaries or simply move the fence to steer clear of legal complications. The estimated cost to relocate the fence could be around $2,000 and would potentially help avoid lawyer fees, yet it seemed to me that this wasn't merely about the fence. Therefore, I decided to have our own survey conducted. If Kieran is correct, we'll shift the fence. However, I want clarity. The following morning, I contacted Meridian Land. surveying, and explained the predicament. Owner, a man named Dennis Crawford, assured he could dispatch someone within a week. He inquired about the dispute regarding the fence line, to which I responded. We often encounter such disputes. Usually the fence is correctly positioned, but there's confusion about property lines. I hope this is the case here. I shared my concerns since my neighbor possesses a 1994 survey showing the fence on his land, yet it feels suspicious. Dennis inquired who conducted that survey in 1994. Upon checking the document, it was revealed to be Brookside Land Services. A longer pause followed. 15 years ago, Brookside ceased operations, and owner Mitchell Brookside lost his surveying license due to allegations of fraudulent documents. Given this, it's advisable to obtain a new survey. This revelation left me chilled. The doubt surrounding the original 1994 surveyor, one Tyler, heightened with the emergence of these issues. On Thursday morning, Tyler, a young surveyor, arrived and worked for around 3 hours, measuring, verifying property markers, and consulting GPS coordinates. Throughout this process, I observed Kieran watching from his window, and his hand tremors while holding his coffee cup did not escape my notice. After completing the measurements, Tyler began to pack up. I approached him then for his findings. The positive news is that your fence is in the correct location, he reported. In reality, it's slightly encroaching on your property by about 2 inches, so if necessary, you could slightly adjust it towards your neighbor's house. Despite my relief, Tyler appeared troubled. He continued, gazing at Kieran's house. An odd discovery I made while verifying property markers. Your neighbor's back corner pin, defining the boundary for your fence, appears to have been shifted. It seems someone excavated and relocated it approximately 18 inches onto your land, judging by the surrounding concrete. This alteration would explain why an earlier survey from 1994 placed the fence on Kieran's property. My thoughts whirled. Somebody intentionally moved a property marker to make it appear as if our fence encroached upon Kieran's land. Yet, who could do such a thing, and for what reason? Tyler handed me his preliminary report. By Monday, I'll provide the official survey, but let me assure you now, your fence is in order. The mystery lies in whether or not Kieran was aware that his property marker had been manipulated. That very night, I shared Tyler's findings with Brielle. The fence was in its correct position, but Kieran manipulated our property marker to give an appearance of trespassing on his land. Brielle wondered, why would someone do that? I had a hunch, but needed verification. That weekend, I journeyed to the county courthouse and sought all property records for both houses dating back as far as possible. The information I unearthed in those old files altered everything. Since 1962, Kieran's house had been under the ownership of his parents, Richard and Dorothy Holbrook. In 1993, Richard Holbrook submitted a request for a property line adjustment, arguing that the initial survey was flawed and he owned an extra 18 inches along the eastern boundary, which borders our house. The application was granted based on a report from Brookside Land Services. Remarkably, this was the same surveyor Tyler mentioned to me, known for fabricated documents, who had lost his license. However, what sent chills down my spine was the discovery that 1994 saw the death of Richard Holbrook, 3 months following the approval of the property line adjustment. Dorothy passed away 2 years later. Upon inheriting the house, Kieran became aware that his father had illegally acquired 18 inches of the neighbor's yard. His anxious behavior, urgency about the fence, and obvious unease all pointed to this knowledge. He had lived with the guilt of it for 3 decades. But what suddenly prompted him to legitimize those 18 inches? A change had occurred, a revelation that came to light on Monday when Tyler handed me the official survey report. In passing, he revealed something that made all the pieces fall into place. I heard your neighbor's been trying to sell his house, Tyler said casually. It turns out that Kieran was putting his house up for sale as well, and a potential buyer was hesitant due to property line issues. Due to an issue discovered by a title company during the property transaction, Kieran was hurriedly trying to legitimize the situation to prevent the deal from collapsing, and that night I walked over to his house with Tyler's survey report in hand. Upon my arrival, Kieran appeared to have aged significantly over the past month. "We need to discuss," I said. He welcomed me inside where moving boxes filled his living room, clearly indicating his intention to depart. "I am aware of the property pin and that your father moved it in 1993. I continued, placing Tyler's report on his kitchen table. I also know about the falsified survey. Kieran slumped visibly, showing a sense of relief for the first time since this ordeal began. I have been harboring this secret for 30 years, he confessed softly. The man my father wasn't evil, but he believed that past homeowners had been utilizing a portion of our garden for years. Thus he felt entitled to reclaim what should have been ours. He employed a surveyor and paid him more to relocate the boundary marker and submit the necessary paperwork. However, you were aware it was unjust. After my parents passed away, I considered disclosing this, but I saw no purpose. The fence had already been erected, and you were utilizing the space anyway. I decided to accept the situation. That is, until you opted to sell. He acknowledged this. The title company detected it. They asserted that the 1993 property alteration appeared questionable and wouldn't approve the sale unless the property boundaries were confirmed. I panicked. I thought if I could persuade you to move the fence willingly, perhaps I could make them believe the adjustment was valid, but you knew it would never succeed. He admitted this again. Over 3 decades of deceit about my father's dishonest actions was too much to disclose to my buyers. The truth was weighing heavy. My father was essentially a thief. For a brief moment, we sat in an uncomfortable silence. Kieran looked at me with eyes brimming with guilt spanning 3 decades. He expressed his regret, acknowledging that he should have revealed the truth from the start and disclosed everything. The resolution turned out to be straightforward. Kieran hired a lawyer to file the necessary paperwork to rectify the property adjustment fraudulently made years ago. The county removed an illegal 18-inch addition from his property, restoring its original boundaries. A few weeks later, his house was sold, and he moved to Florida to be near his daughter. Before leaving, Kieran visited us one last time to offer apologies and deliver a bottle of wine, a letter explaining everything that had transpired, including insights into his father's motives, the guilt he endured for 3 decades, and the reasons behind his silence. He declared he detested deceit about matters such as this, yet found it increasingly challenging to distinguish truth from falsehood once ensnared in a lie. As I witnessed Kieran depart for the final time, it struck me that the narrative was not primarily centered on a dispute over a fence or land boundaries. Instead, it exposed the burden of family secrets, the corrosive impact of guilt, and how individual decisions can resonate across generations. Though our physical boundary remains unchanged, marked by the familiar property pins, I now comprehend that sometimes the most critical demarcations aren't those defined by land, but rather those between right and wrong, truth and falsehood, and the determination to confront the past versus the apprehension of living with its repercussions. The new occupants of Kieran's residence appear amiable. They have yet to acknowledge our boundary fence. Should you reach here, kindly consider subscribing for similar tales. Keep in mind that sometimes the most significant struggles take place within our very neighborhoods.